Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you might notice that I switched places with Brian because I have body dysmorphia. And I was spiraling so hard because my arm looked fat in the video.
Yeah, so for our listeners who listen exclusively to the podcast, Youngmi requested that we switch seats.
I was having a huge mental health crisis. I'm not even gonna...
Episode 104, 105, 103.
Yeah.
And we have switched seats.
I feel like I started on this side. If you look at old footage, I was on this side.
You know, I just want you to feel comfortable. I want you to be confident.
Thank you.
And that's the most important thing. But also, as someone who is very regimented about their routine and doing things a certain way, I don't know, the chi is a little different.
I could tell that it was really bothering you, Brian. Me switching with you was really I was like, can I switch? It's my body dysmorphia. But then I have to say, even though it was hard for Brian, he let me because he cares about my emotions and my mental health. And I want to say thank you, Brian.
No, I could tell. That must be really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I was like looking at the pictures and I was looking at the video and I was like, I'm gonna kill myself.
And I want to explain to those of you who are listening via audio, it's a perspective thing where the camera is angled.
Yeah.
It's not straight on. So the person who is in the foreground or nearest to the camera,
there's some warping going on.
They're going to look, they're closer to the camera. So the person who's further away is going to look small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, like if you haven't heard the podcast before, I have body dysmorphia. And if you have it, it's really intense. It's like a horrible illness. So thank you, Brian. Let's get going with the Patreon shout outs, our wonderful Patreon supporters.
Good vibes only, everyone. Welcome to the Feeling Asian podcast.
Yeah.
But speaking of our Patreon, if you like the podcast, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. Youngmi and I, we love you. Support the pod. We'll give you a shout out. And with that comes a positive affirmation.
Yeah.
You ready to jump into this week's affirmations?
Yes.
First shout out goes out to Heather Wang.
Heather Wang, you are the most incredible, thoughtful friend.
Jess Hong. We know Jess Hong. She came to our Zoom hangouts. We love Jess Hong. But also, Jess Hong, you are the best at roasting your besties in the group chat.
Jess Hong likes to drink really fancy cocktails that she makes for herself at home. I love her.
Shout out to Bethany Nelson.
Bethany Nelson has an important job.
Shout out to Mindy Chu. Mindy, this is your cross to bear, but anytime one of your best friends is going through a hard time, they hit you up because you are so thoughtful and really great at giving advice.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ryan Mooneyham.
You know Ryan knows the best places to eat. You know. Before you see it on the internet.
And we know that you know, Ryan, that you have an incredible name.
Yes.
Ryan Mooneyham. Next one goes out to Jeremy Holt.
I know Jeremy. Jeremy also friend of the pod.
We know Jeremy.
Yeah. They are
incredible hair.
They have the best hair.
and they are incredibly kind.
And they're extremely attractive.
Next one goes out to Valerie.
Valerie, I love Amy Winehouse so much. R.I.P. Valerie, you have Amy Winehouse vibes, and I mean that in the most complimentary way.
Next one goes out to Valerie W. Valerie W., you are the keystone of your friend group.
There's two Valeries in a row?
Two Valeries in a row.
Wow.
But this one's Valerie W. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah,
Valerie W., when you feel like staying in and don't want to go out, no one in your friend group goes out.
I think she has a huge chest tattoo is the psychic vibe I'm picking up. Those hurt a lot. I just got one.
Susan Lee.
Susan Lee. I think Susan Lee has an incredible wardrobe, incredible fashion sense.
I see that too. Last one goes out to Maya Song. Maya, you are the voice of reason in the most endearing way in your friend group.
Yeah, if somebody's scream crying like Brian likes to do, you can get them to calm down right away. It's been a running theme on our... We just had our live show. Oh, wait, before we start, thank you so much for the Patreon donations. We really, really, really... It means the world to us. We love you so much.
We love you so, so much. And every dollar goes a long way.
It really does. We've been stretching it. We only use it for work stuff.
Yeah. As it should be. Thank you again, everyone. And you want to talk about our live show that we just had yesterday?
Yeah, we had our live show talking about how much we love everybody. Oh my God. You know, it was so great. Everyone that shows up is so wonderful. But it's kind of hard for me to be around people that like me. What about you, Brian? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I'm incredibly comfortable and like it a lot.
It makes me so uncomfortable. I'm like, thank you. Like, that means a lot to me, but please don't look at me.
Well, for those of you who didn't come to the live show, aka our listeners that we don't like as much, Youngmi, you just stated that you don't like it. You don't like being looked at. For those of you who missed out, Youngmi, you wore the...
chainmail
you
halter
wore
top.
You wore a Swarovski crystal chainmail halter top.
I sure did. I bought that in Koreatown.
Don't look at me, but also
look at me. You know, like those, I always talk about memes. You know those memes where it's like, I can't tell if I'm like disgusting or I'm the hottest person that ever lived. It's like, what mental illness is that? That's where I live.
That was incredible, your energy.
No, it was great. Well, I was gonna say the running theme at our show is that I always make fun of you because you cried that one time when we were planning the live show.
Yes, I did.
But it's because it meant so much to you. I really respect that.
And I'm also mentally unwell, but we can... Yeah, it's because it meant a lot to me.
Oh, remember the person in the audience that sat in the front named Brian? He said he never heard the podcast. We were like, all right, just sitting right in the front there.
That's a great plug for our live show. Our live show is so good that people who've never even listened to the podcast come to the show.
Do you think he had fun?
Oh, yeah. He came up to us afterwards and said, oh my God, this is the best live show I have ever been to. I can't imagine what actual listeners of the podcast who weren't able to make it are missing out on. They should absolutely come to future shows.
Yeah, or they can look at I think they can buy live stream tickets if they don't live in New York City. That's what Brian said.
He said all of this to us, and Youngmi was incredibly uncomfortable while he was going on this long diatribe about how amazing the show was.
My question is, do you think he's listening to this episode now? Now he's a fan of the podcast.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
he
Brian,
knows that the host has the same name as him.
This goes out to you, Brian. Thank you for coming to our show.
Shout outs to Brian. Our next show is October 28th. Tickets are on sale now. You know, it's probably going to sell out, but we wanted to give our listeners a head start.
Yeah.
And we have a famous person slated, but famous people famously do change their plans a lot because they're famous.
That happens a lot. So we're always scared to announce it. But there is a famous person. Well, I mean, more famous, because last two shows we had very famous, wonderful comedians and friends.
Yes. But yeah, it was super great. Honestly, it was it was awesome. I'm really proud of us for executing and accomplishing that.
Yeah, it was fun.
I thought it was a great show.
It was a great show. I threw a slipper at Brian at one point.
But that's the only teaser you're going to get, because you're going to have to come to the live show for the full experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, listeners, this week it's just the two of us.
We're catching up with the listeners on what's going on in our lives.
Kicking it old school, baby.
Because we like to keep you informed.
I think our listeners like it too.
These episodes do well. We've said that before.
Yeah, we get messages and reviews from people who... Some of them even prefer the solo episodes more than the guest episodes.
Why? Just kidding. I don't like compliments. Well, I guess, I guess we'll start. Brian, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling. How am I feeling? I'm feeling a little bit more low energy today. I think because I was riding this high off of our live show yesterday.
Yeah.
I get this way after a hot show. I'm just high off my own supply. So much dopamine, so much adrenaline running.
Yeah.
And I have trouble sleeping those nights because I'm so giddy and excited.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going on with me today. You know, kind of the crash after the big high.
Oh, did you like not get a lot of sleep last night?
It was a good sleep, but hours wise, not as much. But I think just emotional state.
Yeah.
Back to reality after feeling awesome and having a great show. So I'm a little bit more low energy today. That's what's going on with me in a physical sense. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is I feel really happy and really proud of myself because recently one of our listeners, shout out to the wonderful Caitlin, she is an incredibly talented illustrator and comedian, humorist, you name it. They reached out to me to, if I was interested. They reached out to see if I was interested in collaborating on a humor piece to submit to a magazine.
Wow.
And, I, as a comedian, you always you have like little goals.
Yeah.
Like tent poles in your brain. For every comedian, I'm sure the apex of that is Saturday Night Live. Whether or not you like the show, you hate the show, if they offered you to do it, 99% of all comedians would say, I absolutely will do it. Even if they have talked shit about the show up until that point. It's just a little tent pole in your brain.
Yeah, because then you can be like, I did it.
Yeah, and for me, one of those tent poles or, little goals in my brain is to get published for a comedic sample.
Yeah.
But I never really actively pursued it in earnest. Like emailing my network to see who the editor is, to pitch or submit anything. Because I would always talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
Just assume, what's the point? It's never going to get accepted. They get thousands of submissions daily.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do my little thing and that's that.
Yeah.
And and so, this person reached out to me to collaborate on this piece, and that really helped, knowing that there was another person involved. It was like a collaborative thing.
Right.
I don't think I ever would have done it if it was just me.
Yeah.
And I had a tremendous amount of fun and really enjoyed doing it. And we submitted it. And then yesterday I received word that the piece was accepted by the editor.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah. And I didn't, I just enjoyed doing it. And that was a reward in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, regardless if it was accepted or not, it's something that, I think it's funny, and it was fun to do.
But I mean, obviously, if they didn't accept it, there would be a part of you like, aw, you know what I mean?
A little bit, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not so precious about that particular medium per se. I don't know. It's precious is the key word that I want to touch on here, because I am. It was a lot of emotions and different things I was feeling once I realized that this piece was accepted by the editor. First and foremost, I'm very happy, really proud that this was, it's cool. This editor saw our work and deemed it as like good, you know, and it's incredibly validating. But the other thing is, this has been a chronic problem for me.
Yeah.
I'm so precious about all of my ideas. That
you've talked about this.
Yeah, that I kind of got this like little swagger or confidence boost knowing that piece got accepted, because it's tremendously validating for your ego, just anyone's ego, my ego. Like I was through the roof. It really like cemented the idea in my mind that oh, I am good at this. I am funny.
Yeah, and I obviously, you know, I don't think you should put your validation on outside sources of validation, like how you view yourself, but you know, because I obviously think you're really funny, and a fancy magazine didn't have to tell me that, right? But I have to say, I know what you mean by like, you know, when you set a goal and you get that goal, that feeling is very good. Yeah. You know?
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
And I guess,
and it does feel good to have like an outside source validate you, you know, like, oh, I can, like what you said about SNL, like even though I don't want to do SNL, if they hired me, I'd be like, I'm good enough for SNL, you know, that's big, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is, I just need to be more confident and less precious about any creative work that I put out into the world. Yeah. Because if it weren't for this, all would not have transpired without the help of this incredibly generous collaborator,
right,
who gave me the little push I needed to set a little goal for myself and meet a deadline and like do the work to do it. Because otherwise, I would just. I would never have done it. I would be in the same position as I am now. I would have immediately talked myself out of it before I even did it, you know?
I'm like that too. And I know that you've talked about that.
Yeah.
And I find it the same thing. Like if somebody's doing it with me, then I will do it because I feel accountable to somebody else.
Right.
And I don't respect myself, but I respect them. Do you know what I mean? So then I'll do it because like somebody wants me to do it.
Right.
But it's so hard for me to do it by myself for myself.
Right.
And I have that too, but I think for me personally, it's because like I don't believe in myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like before I submit anything, I'm always like, why would I submit to this magazine? I'm stupid, and what I do is it's not going to be good enough. Like that's the thought in my head.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard to fight that.
We would make terrible presidents. Imagine if we made it ascended to president of the United States and we're like, can you like help me?
Open the borders or not if you don't feel like it.
Do you want to co-sign? Can you just sign this bill first and then I'll scribble my signature next to you when we execute it?
Yeah, can we just raise the minimum wage? No worries if not. No worries if not. If I'm bothering you, don't worry about it.
You show up to a UN meeting when it's like, so your friend from home is with you and they're like, who's this? Like, shh, I really need Anne here.
She's just here for support. Jeff Bezos should pay taxes, or you know, if just throwing that out there. Yeah. Sorry, does that sound crazy? I'm just kidding. That's like me as a that's a funny SNL character. We should submit that.
No, we just did the cardinal sin of every comedian.
Oh, that'd be
that'd
be a great sketch on SNL.
Whoa, we just made a short film. Should we just shoot that right now?
Shoot this.
But yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling, and I want to.
Proud of you.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of myself, and it's dope as fuck to receive that sort of validation from an external thing, and especially if it's from a goal that you had set for yourself. But damn, I want to be more I just want to be less precious about my work, be confident, and know that I've done comedy for a pretty long time up until this point. Yeah, you know, like I'm obviously going to be funnier than a person who has never done a single open mic. I know that much. But
I mean, you have the talent and the skill because of your practice.
But even in that comparison, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm more confident than insert most bland person. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, why am I even I should be striving. I want to be striving higher, you know. And what's crazy?
Hard.
It's so hard.
I'm just pointing at my brain. What's in there is like really just blocking me. I struggle with this every single thing I do.
Did you ever have you ever gotten messages from people, let's say after you've done a comedy show, that they hit you up for comedy advice? And it'd be like, "Oh, I've never done stand up."
No.
Like,
I don't think so.
I've gotten that before. This was when I did like college shows. It would be like college.
Ask you advice on how to do stand up or how to write jokes or what?
Yeah.
Ah.
But what's funny is that it'll be these, like, let's say it's like a sprightly young, like, white young 20s kid. They'd be like, "Hey, you were dope as shit, loved your stuff. I just want to let you know I'm really fucking funny. I would be good at this. Do you want to get coffee sometime?"
Oh, people have said, "I'm looking to do stand up. Can you help me? How do I get started?" Like that? And I'm like,
no, but this is like, what I want to focus on is like, here's this person who's never even done the thing.
Yeah.
And in their intro message of like, "Let's get coffee,"
they're saying they're funny.
I'm like,
You're not funny. If you've ever said I'm funny to somebody, you're not funny.
But that's the thing. We can
Confidence.
we can benefit from that kind of self-confidence.
See, when people like that reach out to me, this is always the vibe. It's never like, "Hey, I'm a nice, sweet person and I need help." The vibe is always like, it's always,
"I'm a huge piece of shit.
It's like shitty.
And I
It's
deserve
like,
this."
Yeah, it's like literally like, "Hey, how did you get that? I'm funnier than you." Like that sort of feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's always like some 22-year-old, like, you can tell that they don't think you're that funny. And they're like, "Why are you on this show? I'm funny. Can you get coffee with me?" And I'm like, you may be funny. You may be funnier than me.
Right.
But you're not doing it. So I'm on the show and you're not, bro. Like, that's the end. Like, who cares how funny you are if you're not gonna fucking go in the fucking and put the work in? No one gives a shit, you know. Like,
100%. Yeah. So
yeah, I hate.
I want to
no one's asked me for advice. No.
I want to manifest that for us because we've put in the work. Now it's time to, you know,
reap the rewards.
Reap the rewards and fucking ball out and be
I'm
swaggy.
Scared. I don't want to submit anything. I've never submitted anything in my life.
But here's the thing. I'm surprised to hear you right now say that you are similar to me in this way.
Yeah.
Because I think your TikTok is a case in point of you doing the opposite of, like, I find your TikTok very aspirational, where you and
so throwing spaghetti at the. I'm just.
It's not throwing spaghetti.
Yeah.
You know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, you take a lot of care and all these. Like, I don't know how preciously you treat all of these ideas, but all of your content is incredibly funny, and I aspire to whatever, like, your TikTok, because it's your voice is confident. You can tell that you know you're funny. The product is really good. It is very funny, and you just fucking balls to the wall. You just pump it out. Here's another video. Here's another video. Here's another video.
I mean,
like, if I was in your shoes doing that TikTok, there would be like 3 videos. Like,
before I remember, I was talking about TikTok for a long time before I started doing it.
True.
And one day I was like, I'm just gonna fucking do it, and it's like, I still literally, I'm like, I am not funny.
Damn.
Like, that's how I think in my head. I'm like, I'm not funny. Like, why do people?
That is crazy to me, because
really
your videos are so funny and so many people share them. They go viral, and you have this tremendous voice on your TikTok.
I should stop doing that in my head, huh? I'm being very honest with you. In my head, I'm like, I'm not funny, and somehow I've tricked all these people. Somehow.
So instead, you're just in this hell, where this mental prison, where you're making a TikTok with your ring light.
Now that I say this out loud, I'm like, I should. Why do I think that about myself? It's so weird.
Well, I'm just letting you know that from I'm seeing it from the outside.
Yeah.
Your TikTok serves as a way to, it's a balm for my brain. Like, no, I got to be more like Youngmi and just trust myself. It is funny. Just let it out.
I have to say, I think all of my, because I started doing comedy 3 years ago. Did you realize? I was like,
it seems way longer.
I had to scroll through my calendar app to be like, I was like, no, there's no way. And I like looked 3 years ago. And until then, I didn't produce anything creative in my entire life. It's like I had to go through therapy and it clicked one day.
Yeah.
And then I like somehow I was just like, I have to do this. Like I have to get it out. Like I've been holding it in.
Right.
But it was because of that. I was scared. I was like too scared to show anybody anything that I thought.
Yeah.
Because it's scary. I just wanted to hide and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think I did have to work through that. And now I'm just like making fucking videos, talking about sucking dicks and stuff. I don't know what I'm doing.
And you're like, create your own happiness, everyone.
I still feel like I'm a fucking loser. Well, I think you're funny, Brian.
Oh, thank you.
I always, what I always think? I'm like, if you made TikToks, like I just feel like if you did it, you would like blow up. You would blow the fuck up because you're funny. I think the thing about you, Brian, I'm just going to compliment you so you feel confident. I think the thing about you, and I know everyone like talks about you being really hot, which is, it's true, but I don't want you to think that that's like your only, I think there's like a combo of you being hot and you're funny. And I know comedians say that that's not good for comedians, but I feel like that's like a really powerful combo and you don't see that, And you got a podcast.
Embarrassing.
Triple threat. Brian Park.
Embarrassing. Very embarrassing. Maybe I'll start making TikToks.
I wish we could see each other in the way that we see each other. Do you know what I mean? I wish we could see ourselves in the way that other people see us.
I'll be honest with you, though. I don't know if my style of comedy... I have a pretty good sense of how my comedy brain works. And I don't know if my style of comedy would necessarily translate well over to TikTok because I like things like very dry and very like subtle. That's just my personality.
Yeah.
And here I am, you know what? Fuck it. I'll do it. And then we can observe and see how it performs. But the other realization that led me to this conclusion, well, the other observation that led me to, this conclusion of this discussion of how I've been feeling.
Yeah.
We recently did a video shoot. Like we were part of this video shoot that had other influencers and creative, like, just basically internet famous people.
Yeah.
Where they had, I think collectively they had maybe 10 billion more followers than us.
10 billion.
We were by far.
No, I mean, realistically, I think they all had at like least 1 million followers.
Yeah. And I felt like at leaving that, I felt, here's one thing that surprised me is it shows that we've put in the time, like on the streets, on the ground level, doing open mics and like honing our craft. Yeah. Because it just comes as second nature that I don't really realize it, but being in a room with these other people who do it professionally, like they have millions of followers, like, but
they're internet people, and so they're honing a different kind of skill,
right? And so I left feeling like, damn, we could fucking do that shit. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I think we fucking killed it. It was great. Yeah,
we did great.
Yeah, but that concludes how I feel. So the conclusion is, I'm gonna start creating a TikTok.
The precious thing, I struggle. Like I said, it's hard. I think you're not to like guess what's going on with you, but I feel like you have this thing where you want everything to be really perfect, right?
Well,
so that
kind
of gets in the way.
That.
Yeah, you've talked about that.
I let
and the fear of it being.
What's that saying? Don't let great get in the way of good.
Yeah.
It's often used in dating contexts,
Yeah.
But I think for me it applies to work.
And
I'm so fucking focused on making things perfect that it gets in the way of good.
And I actually had that too, but I think more like my version of that is everything I do sucks. So I don't want to show anybody this. Like that's the roadblock in my mind.
I'm so surprised. I know it's a weird feeling. I know it's really irrational.
I have to fight it all constantly.
So every TikTok that you upload,
I think it sucks. And I'm like, I look like a loser and I'm cringe. Somebody did call me power cringe. And I was like, this is cringy.
Listeners, if we made a mug that said power cringe on it, would you buy it? Because
power cringe chaotic bottom.
We're flirting with the idea of making some
merchandise,
some merch, and I really want power cringe to be on there.
Okay, but can I just tell you this sad story before I move on to my feeling? So this is a sad story.
Love a sad story.
This is also, I thought my life was gonna be like this because this is what I saw. My dad, all his life, had a dream of becoming a writer, a novelist, and throughout my childhood, he would attempt it. Like he would sit down and like try to write it for like 3 days and do like 10 pages and then stop. And then he tried to do that like 3 times in his life.
Yeah. Because
he has a very similar issue like you. He's a perfectionist. He's like everything he does he has to like perfect.
Yeah. And
it's so extreme in his mind that it would like bother him. I'm sure he took like a few weeks writing at a time. Yeah. Like the 3rd week into writing, it would bother him because everything just, like writing, you have to like write drafts and drafts and drafts and like, and like it's
so much work.
Yeah. Like by the 3rd week, his brain was like at war against himself. You know what I mean? And I know all writers
look at his
have
Microsoft
that.
Word doc and it's just like all work and no play makes
Tortured
Youngmi's
writer.
dad a dull boy.
A tortured writer. But every creative has that that voice in your head that's like you suck, and then the other voice is like you're a genius. But then you have to balance them out and you have to keep like working through that. But my dad couldn't, and it would get to the point where it would just. And then he's never done it. And it was like his life dream. He's in his 70s. You know what I mean? And so the reason I say that is like, I feel like because my dad was such a hard ass like perfectionist, I've always like been the opposite of that and be like, whatever, it's fine. It's like, that's my personality. Yeah. Like I would like, I'm gonna make a dress or something. And it's just like 2 pieces of cloth stapled. I'm like, that's dress. Look, wear it. Like, I'm like, I'm so anti-perfect because I feel like I was like so oppressed by that personality as a child in my dad. And so I'm just telling you the story like as a cautionary tale. Okay. You can't let your brain get in the way because then you'll be 70 and you've never written your book.
Totally.
Right?
And it's like I fucking hate. Why do our brains do this to us?
I don't know.
It's fucked up.
It's really fucked up. Yeah.
Because I have the same opinion of all of those people who have amassed a huge following for whatever their creative work is on social media or any medium for that matter. As much criticism, like there's a correlation with the more popularity you get, the more criticism you receive. Yeah. And it's easy to be a hater. Sure, it sucks, but I always say, at least they're putting the work out there. They're putting the work out there, and that's what. See, I just said it. I'm gonna do that. I should like be corny and write that on my mirror. Corny. Just put the work out there.
The thing is that with the world and how it is, it's not like the most talented, beautiful minds are the ones writing the books. It's the people that are doing it, and they might be stupid, but they're doing it, and and somebody else isn't. So that's why it's getting printed.
Wow. So once you start embracing that, we might be getting 3 to 5 TikTok videos from you a day.
Yeah. Maybe I am stupid, but I'm going to fucking keep doing it. I don't give a fuck. Who cares? I'm going to die. I'm not going to be 70 and like have something that I wanted to do all my life that I didn't do.
Well, it's even more impressive that you're putting that much content out when it's like a literal
a nightmare
for you in your brain.
Like, I hate this. This is stupid. Every single time. Wait, you don't do that? I feel like every time I do stand up, I'm like, I'm an idiot. I made an ass of myself.
Yeah, it's
every
the same
time,
thing.
man. What a
and
fucking
then
battle.
I have a good set, and afterwards I'm like, I'm good at this, but why the fuck did I suffer so much for this?
Yeah. Can I tell one more story before I say how I feel about being a hater that doesn't do shit?
It's us two, baby.
You know, I love this story. Do you know the filmmaker Francois Truffaut?
No.
He made this movie. I think it's called The 400 Blows. I know what it's called. Come on.
Okay.
It's a great movie. It's a very famous French film.
Okay.
But how he started was like, this is when like film was blowing up, like in the fucking 50s or whatever in France.
Okay.
Like there was like this anyway, so he was a shit talking critic. He was like 20 years old, and he would just talk shit about all these movies. They'd be like, these movies fucking suck.
Yeah.
Like he was like that guy that slid into your DMs being like, I'm funny, I could be a stand-up comedian, give me advice like that. Just talking shit about all the filmmakers.
Right.
And then finally he wrote like a magazine that was really popular in Paris. And then somebody was like, hey, bitch, why don't you fucking make a movie then? And then he made the greatest French film of all time. Known as, went down in history as like the greatest French film. So, you know, if you're listening to this and you're like, I could be funnier than Brian and Youngmi, like, they should shut up. I want to do a podcast. I'm just saying, just fucking do it. And you will be the best comedian in the world. That's the opposite of a cautionary tale. That's two stories. One, my dad, who didn't do it. One, Francois Truffaut, who fucking did the fucking damn thing.
Yeah, but I think it's important to highlight that in order to create great art, you need to be motivated by in a tremendous amount of spite.
Yeah. Just, you make a movie then. Fine, I will.
Fuck you, you piece of shit.
You know what? I will.
And
it will be great.
Yeah, you know what? I am going to make a podcast.
Someone just has to tell you to fuck off one time. Spite
Oh
movie.
man, I think we're so close to this new wave of films that are narrative centered around podcasts. And what an embarrassing point in society we will have reached at that point.
Yeah.
That's gonna be amazing.
Podcast movies.
It's gonna be like starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my god,
we
Brian.
can't do it, man. Okay, the market's too saturated. Come on. All we need is a mic. Don't you want to dream? Oh my god. We just crossed 1,000 followers on iTunes.
Oh my god. I'm going to make this joke and I'm so sorry because I know this joke's been done to death, but Scarlett Johansson's going to play me.
100%.
The only Asian actress in Hollywood. I'm sorry I did that joke.
And then Steven Yeun can play me.
Can you imagine? If somebody made a movie about our fucking podcast?
It's gonna happen.
How
I'm telling
sad.
you.
I'm
it's gonna
so
happen.
sorry.
It's probably gonna be about Pod Save America or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Call Her Daddy.
Yeah, Call Her. That's definitely gonna be a movie,
Yeah.
and I'm so sad for society. I'm so sorry for all of us that Call Me Daddy is gonna become a movie. You know it's gonna happen.
I think you mean Call Her Daddy.
Is it called Call Her Daddy? Is it?
Yeah,
I've never listened to it. I'm sorry.
I've only listened to every single episode. How are you feeling, Youngmi?
I'm gonna let that go. So I am feeling well, I have this body dysmorphia thing that's kicking into high gear.
Yeah, we switched seats, switched mics up top.
Yeah, but I always feel like I think it's something that I discovered in therapy is that I have this like disassociation thing where I can't deal with hard emotions. And so I switch it in my brain and be like, oh, I'm upset because I'm fat or something, which is what my brain does. Like, because
so it's an avoidant thing. So
yeah.
if there's
So
something
whatever
else,
the fuck is going on, I don't even know. And like literally like weeks later, I'll be like, oh, I was going through it because of this during that time. You know what I mean?
Right.
My brain just does this immediate thing where it's like I think it's like this control thing. You know? It's like, oh, my life's not bad. It's just I am like overweight. So if I lose weight, then everything will be fine, like that. And so I don't even know what's going on when I feel bad.
Right.
Yeah, it's like really weird. So that's going on with me.
Damn. But I don't want to sound insensitive.
Yeah.
But I think this also proves just how difficult it is to write a 250-word essay. Because you would rather subject yourself to a regimented diet and whatever the fuck to get that tangible goal of losing weight versus sitting down and writing 250 words on your goddamn Microsoft Word.
I can't believe anyone's ever written a book. Dude, can you imagine? Torture.
Oh my god. Yo, of course, that's fucking torture. In high school, I was the one who was secretly making the periods like 14-point font just so I can reach the minimum page requirement of any English essay. Like, there was always those kids. There's always those kids
I didn't even know
who
that. That's a hack.
wrote way more pages than the maximum, and they're like, "Oh, I just have to edit down." I was like, "How? Literally, how? How do you have that many ideas or words in your brain to dump out onto this word?" Damn. I don't know. High school, what a wild time.
Yeah.
Do you remember? There was like our homework would be write a 1,000 word essay, and you're like, damn, it's 11 p.m. I gotta pump this out by 7 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah. Guess I'll do it. I can't believe
that I used to do things like that. Can you believe that? My brain is so fried right now. What the hell? And like that was like before I was drinking wine, and it's not like you have a glass of wine and you're on your computer, and it's just like raw dog.
I know.
Sober brain doing stuff like that.
Well, look at me. I'm pretty much sober now, and I'm fucking raw dog being a fucking whatever it is I do.
Yeah. So I was like, so that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like, I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling like sort of dread but you know what? I wanted to talk about this TikTok that I saw that really helped me. Is that corny?
No.
Yes, this is me.
This is show us the TikTok, baby.
Okay, so this is a TikTok that I saw, and
I gotta stop saying baby.
Really, baby. No, it's funny. I think it's funny when you say that. There's this TikTok that I saw, and it was like, of course I fucking lost it. Here it is.
Don't you love when that happens when you want to show a photo to a friend? Talk about you're actually playing the TikTok.
Idea of loving what happens. Marcus Aurelius says that what you throw on top of a fire is fuel for the fire. So what you want to cultivate, what you have to practice, you have to almost repeat it like a mantra to yourself, is the practice of loving everything that happens. Not just accepting it, not just tolerating it, but leaning into it, going, this is for me, I chose this, I want it this way, and it's the best fucking thing that ever happened to me. When the computer eats the manuscript you've been working on, you say, amor fati, I love it. When you're stuck in traffic, you say, amor fati, I love it. When you're criticized on Twitter, when your boss calls you out, you say, amor fati, I love it. I'm going to be better for this having happened to me. When you're hungry, you say, I love it. I'm alive. I feel this. I'm going to make the most of it. You say, amor fati. With the Stoics,
amor fati. And then I was like listening to that, and I was like, yeah, I love it. When my brain is being all fucking weird, I love it.
Listeners, Youngmi prefaced this by saying, is that cringe? And after having experienced whatever that just was in person, love the message, but that was
cringe. The video was cringe.
Did not think that you were going to play. I thought you were going to read some. Did not think you were going to play the TikTok directly into
the mic,
into our microphone for the podcast.
Somebody listening needed to hear that, okay?
And the TikTok is just visuals of a butterfly and really corny imagery.
It was like the Michelangelo bust, like sculpture. No, like whatever you're going through. It's like switching your brain and being like, all right,
switch it up.
I have this fucking broken ass brain. Everything I do, I think I suck.
I love it.
I think I'm a fucking loser all the time.
You're fucking incredible.
Yeah.
I love it.
Every morning I wake up full of dread and regret. I love it.
Amor fati.
Amor fati.
I actually have that book on my bookshelf.
I thought you were going to say I have that tattooed on my lower back.
Amor fati.
Surprise, bitch. Yeah, I know all about amor fati, bitch.
It's probably one of the few books I haven't read yet. Maybe I'll check it out. Marcus Aurelius.
What book? That book? It's
called Meditations. Yeah,
okay.
He wrote this. It's like his meditations on life. But I should read it.
So whenever you feel like shit, you're just like, I love this. I love this.
Damn,
this
look
is
at
life.
you, Youngmi.
This is life.
I didn't know you were stoic. All about stoicism.
I'm just on TikTok a lot. I don't even know what that means. But it's just like things like, I gotta flip on this thing in my head,
Yeah,
I love this. I love it.
You love it. Yeah.
So, but do you want to talk about that article? Because when we have these solo episodes, we like to kind of touch on things that are happening. You know, we don't really like topical conversations, but also this is the thing the reason why I kind of feel like talking about it now more after the pandemic and everything that's going on with Asian Americans and Asians and our mental health. I feel like it's useful to check in on the state of that as a community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know
I think it's
mean?
great.
Yeah.
But I thought this would. So this article I saw was shared a lot on my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
And on my Instagram stories, and it's an article that was published in Slate, and it was written by Aaron Mack, and it's titled "Men's Rights Asians Think This Is Their Moment," and it's basically a deep dive and a profile into men's rights Asians, and it centers around Yale undergraduate student named Eileen Huang, who, you know, she's a very vocal. She was very active on social media to discuss how Asians need to exercise more anti-Black racism and need to check our privileges and
or not exercise it, but like check our anti-Black racism.
Yes,
yeah.
Asians need to check their anti.
Yeah.
Asians need to be more anti-Black racist.
That's not what she said.
But no, then she found that she was the victim of so much online abuse at the hands of Asian men's rights activists.
It was scary because apparently there was like a subreddit about her.
Yeah, it touches on. There's
people.
2 subreddits in mind.
Yeah.
Asian masculinity and our Asian identity. Yeah.
And they targeted her to the point where they got her accounts deleted off social media.
She's doxxed, yeah.
And I think, you know, what the interesting thing about the MR Asian community, because we've had guests and friends that have been the target of their focus.
Of their ire.
The interesting thing about them is like there's 2 things that I feel like, I don't know that much about it, but this is what I'm guessing, because the thing about Eileen, the reason why they hate her is because she's very vocal about anti-Black racism in the Asian community.
Right.
And they were upset about that, right?
Well, they were upset about it because they felt as if this was during the period in the pandemic where there was a spike, or there was a lot of media coverage centered around you know, these hate crimes targeting Asian people.
Yeah.
And these subreddits felt like you had to call a spade, that the media was showing these attacks, yet no one wanted to you know, point out that the perpetrators of these attacks were Black.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the MR Asians went nuts about that topic, and then they found Eileen, who was like you know, if you've ever seen her TikToks, they're very like smart, and she really breaks down, you know, all these like factors and what happens between the Asian and Black communities, and they like targeted her because of that, because she sort of was like trying to
and then, you know, they dug deeper, and often what happens, I feel like when you are the target of these MR Asian groups, they'll deep dive into your dating history, and then they'll be like, oh look, Eileen used to date a white guy, like she is they have these terms called like a Lou, like you're a Lou, like look at her, like of course she's out over here like being a white supremacist, and she's brainwashed and colonized mentally.
I think those like the MRAs are against, they dislike Asian women, that their number one target is Asian women that date white men, right? Yeah. And they dislike any sort of like discourse about like unity between Asian and Black communities. They want to like, because their whole thing is like, well, Black people are attacking Asian people, why won't you just say it? Yeah. Without like wanting to really discuss like the nuance of like racial and class dynamics and class dynamics in America. Right. Yeah, that's like, I don't know Eileen, but I follow her on TikTok. Oh, okay. And she follows me. Yeah. and we were like even
Flex.
discussing like maybe hanging out.
Sorry.
No, because she was like, oh, I'm gonna be in New York if anyone wants to hang out, but it didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
But I think she's also like sort of trying to like not be on social media that much.
I mean, it sounds horrible what she had to endure.
Yeah, but it's so scary.
And that happens to a lot of Asian women. I mean, the author Celeste Ng had a similar, because she tweeted about this specific Slate article, like resources on how to deal with online harassment, because she was also subjected to harassment from MR Asians on Twitter, and they like focused on how her husband's white, and
so many Asian women that we know in the media have been the victims of.
Have you ever received
of
comments or messages like that?
Yeah, actually I have a lot, but I'm surprised that I'm not at the Eileen level, because I'm like, because I talk about, I don't know why I've been spared this level of scrutiny by them.
Oh no, is that an invitation?
Don't.
Please
don't do it. But I'm asking, it's weird, but don't do it. But I mean, it's interesting. Okay, so MR Asians hate that Asians are being trampled by society. That's their big message,
that's their
right?
That they feel that Asian Americans are often overlooked and lost in the socio-political discourse in America when it comes to equality. And
especially about the sexual thing, because Asian men are considered not sexual in American
as
society.
Emasculated and asexual.
And they're obsessed with that.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. It's like their biggest targets and victims are always Asian women. They're not fucking... Are they out here doxing white men? Not that I know of. Why as a collective group, why are their victims always Asian women if they're pro-Asia? You know what I mean? It's like such internalized racism that they don't even fucking get. And I know we were talking about this, how they really hate there's a lot of Asian women that have internalized racism, and they're like, I would never date an Asian man, and then MR Asians hate those women. Yeah. But it's like both of them have a lot of internalized racism, because they like hate each other. But do you know what I mean? It's
no,
like,
I totally get what you mean.
They're taking this internalized hatred for themselves and Asian people in general and turning it into the other side of the other gender, right?
Right.
Neither of them are realizing they're both kind of the same person. They just hate being themselves and hate being Asian. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's very obviously there's way more nuance than what I just said. But there's such like the fact that MR Asians just hate Asian women, like that's who they go after. It's so fucked up. I thought you were here for us. Like do you understand? Like, okay,
I mean,
it's
certainly
obviously.
Very misogynist.
Watch me get doxxed.
No, but I'm just going to offer. Obviously I don't condone any of these actions, but it to me it just seems like a overcompensatory response to the status of being an Asian man and being constantly emasculated and humiliated and derided and
I get that.
Overlooked. Now, and to a certain extent, I'm not absolving myself from ever having these sorts of thoughts, because especially in my younger years when, let's say I was like a freshman or sophomore in college, I had been around Asian women who would, we would be hanging out in a group and they would say like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't date Asian guys.
Yeah.
And when I heard that in that moment, I'm not saying I'm perfect. That stung even more than hearing like a white woman say I don't date Asian guys.
Yeah.
Because it's not rational, it's displaced, it's a harmful idea that it's like this ownership thing, it's wrong. I'm not but it comes from that feeling. It's like, well, if someone who looks like me and we are experiencing the same struggle and we're part of the same identity group, if you're not accepting me, then who is going to accept me? So I think that like elicits like a more harmful or an enraged response.
I totally understand that, and like I don't want to sound like I'm like condoning this either, but also I understand that, and that's why I wanted to bring up that those two groups, it's like it's like, you know, cishet Asian women and cishet Asian men
Yeah.
are like harming each other because it's like they're targeting each other because they can't target the people that are really like fucking with them. Do you know what I mean? It's like when I've heard Asian women be like, ew, I'm not gonna ever date an Asian guy, and I'm like, how fucked up is that, bro? Like, that is such self-hatred. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How much do you hate yourself that you're saying you wouldn't fuck somebody that looks like you? That's fucking weird. And so I also know what you mean. Like, I can see how painful that would be for Asian men to hear that.
Yeah, but it's not to. It doesn't mean it's right. Like, it's a fuck. It's so. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like a enraged, overcompensatory response where it's like at the end of the day, you don't. What kind of like? Why do you possess this attitude that a certain group like belongs? It's like a belongs to you.
It's a misogynistic idea that it's like a woman is an object. So you have to be with me. You're an object. It's like fucked up.
It's just like, what are you doing? Like having sex with white men? Like you belong to me. Like you're an Asian woman. But
I'm seriously asking this because I don't know anything about MR Asians. If someone's listening to this and knows the answer, please let me know. Do they ever attack white men? Like, do they go online and go ruin the lives of white men that date Asian women? I don't know. I'm asking. And if not, what is that telling you? In this scenario, they're choosing to attack the Asian person and not the white person? Like, that's fucking racist. You know, like, how is that not clicking to them? Like,
right.
Like, it's because obviously they're misogynistic and they believe that women belong to them and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, that logic is so, like, you know what I mean? If you're part of this MR Asian group and you interact with them, you should really ask yourselves, why is the person that you're angry at the other people in your group? You know, like your quote unquote community. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. Come on, man. Stand up for each other. Sorry, I'm like being like, it's complicated. And, well, it's like we were reading the other article, right? There was this article about the community, like the Asian community having these feelings about like the black community. And it's like this like nuanced subject matter, and people are just like, you know, like being very like not trying to talk about it and stuff.
No, but even the central the focus of this piece, which is Eileen Huang and how she was doxxed and subjected to all this online harassment from these two communities. She says that there is, you know, these groups do they experience real trauma.
Yeah.
Like their anger isn't always entirely misplaced. It is real anger. That's real trauma. She is quoted as saying that the subreddit is just not the place where they should be looking for solidarity and compassion and community, because it's just so incredibly toxic. And what the core values of these communities essentially do is Asian men just want to uplift each other just for the approval of the white gaze at the end of the day. Yeah. Is what these, like, the values that these communities are instilling to their followers and, like, the active members.
I don't think they even realize that.
Yeah, and because they even said that there's, like, two different types of Asians in America. There are like Asian Americans who can occupy very white spaces and are accepted amongst white people. And then there's the Asian Americans that no matter what they do, they will never be accepted by white America. Yeah. And I've seen it.
I've seen it too.
Yeah.
And I guess like along the lines of like that thing where those MR Asians are saying they're the truth speakers, and like we won't acknowledge that, like liberal people or whatever. Right. But yeah, I acknowledge that. I totally get that. You know what I mean? Like,
right. But I don't know if it's so. It can be reduced to just racial and gender lines, because ultimately, I feel like this acceptance amongst white the complaints of these MR Asians, the complaints of Asian masculinity, these subreddits who, target these Asian women and their frustrations and not being accepted by, it's more of a class thing, because
yes,
if
100%
cut and dry, if you
Yeah.
are an Asian person who is upper middle class or just wealthy,
yeah,
you're going to be accepted by white America.
yep, yeah, no matter what,
Right.
yeah,
And,
it's a class thing. And the class the class part is like what's always so missing in these conversations. People push it to the, even the like all the the conversations about like how Asian communities relate to Black communities. I'm like, this is just like a lot of this is just like class stuff. Like there's just like there's way more interaction than like white people.
Right.
Like, why are there so many attacks? This is my theory. This might be, I don't know. Why do we see so many attacks on Asian people by Black people? It's like, because like they live in the same communities. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like, we know that in this country, the diversity issue is that white people are segregated. They're in their own little thing, and everyone else is kind of like more together,
Right.
I mean, I think that's a big factor in it too. It's like we're fighting for scraps in this like community together, and so we're bumping heads and bumping into each other, and white people can be like, well, we don't attack it, and it's like, you don't even see us, like,
right.
That's part of I think there's so much nuance in this conversation. There's so many things. Like, remember I told you the story, like Mino went to the playground? So Mino was in the playground.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, and he was playing with like some kids, and they called him the N-word.
Oh shit.
They kept calling him the N-word. And the children were black.
And what context?
The children were Black, so they were saying it in a neutral way.
Okay.
Like just like, hey, like how you say like, hey bro, like that.
Okay, like hey my N-word, yeah.
Yeah. Like they were having a mild argument.
Oh, okay.
They were just like disagreeing about something, a game they were playing.
Okay.
And they were like, you gotta do this, bro, like my N-word or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then but in that situation, I'm like, what? And then Mino, we had a talk a long time ago about not saying the N-word, Mino and I. So
Okay.
he knows he can't say it.
Right.
But then he was like, Mom, but I'm Black. Like the other day he like brought it, he was like, but I'm Black. And I was like, why? And I was like, oh, maybe it's because of the playground incident where these Black kids were calling him the N-word. And I think because when I told him not to say the N-word, I was like, you can't say it because we're not Black, but Black people can say it, and they will say it to other Black people, and that's totally fine, and that's like not your business, but
right.
you just can't say it.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe because they were saying it to him,
then
he was like, well,
okay,
I'm Black, but and and like I was like, I did not think I had to have this sort of conversation with my child, which is privilege, right? That's like privilege, never having to think about things like that.
Of course.
I was like, this is such a confusing situation.
You're like, God damn it, I didn't sign up. Did I sign up for this? Where was this course requirement to become a mother?
And I was like, okay, you are not Black. You cannot say the N-word still. Please don't say it.
Yeah.
And they didn't mean it in a mean way. They were just saying it like you're their friend, or I don't even know. Like that is so, like that stuff like that is so uncomfortable. I don't know. But it also, for me, this is what I think. A lot of white people that are rich, their kids probably will never have a situation like that, because there's like very minimal interaction that they do with other races.
Right.
The wealthier they get, the whiter they get. We saw that statistic, 80% or 75% of white people don't have a person of color friend.
Right.
So that's never gonna happen to them.
They probably won't have these kinds of interactions, or have these, or as a parent you have to make these kinds of considerations.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like that's a blessing. Like, diversity is a gift, because now I have this awkward conversation with Mino but he's gonna know, and he's having to like deal with this sort of situation where, like, you see those like leaked videos of these high school white kids that are rich that live in Connecticut, and they're saying the N-word and rapping, and like then they get canceled, rightfully. It's like because they've never had to think about what that even means. Do you know what I mean?
But then some of them get to become Chet Hanks and That's pretty fucking cool.
And everyone still wants to have sex with him. I don't know why. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Mino's never going to be a fucking dumbass 17-year-old who thinks that they can say the N-word. You know, because of all these, like, interactions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a messy topic. And nobody wants to talk about it. And honestly, like the Mino playground thing, I don't want to fucking talk about that. But then it's
That's
like...
a lot of pressure on you as a mom.
But then that's
like
the
what
yeah.
you explain in that moment is going to influence and impact every interaction he has from that point forward that is similar to this, you know?
Yeah.
But if you were a troll
and
wanted to be a parent that got a laugh out of your kid, you'd be like, yeah, you know, you could just say it and see what happens.
No, Brian, I'm not gonna get my child canceled. What are you talking about?
Just kidding.
Okay,
No, but I'm just saying it's a lot of like yeah, damn. That's I mean, obviously
so
you are obviously going to bestow or be the best, like try to do your best to teach your child, but these are complicated things that you're like confronted with, and your son is what, 8?
But I have to say he's 7. But I have to say, you know, I'm glad that I'm like, it was awkward, but I'm glad that happened because, like I said, I don't want him to be this like person that doesn't understand that people outside of your race are full human beings. All I know is please don't dox me. I care about everyone's trauma.
Everyone, thank you for listening to the podcast. This is the end of this episode. If you made it this far, Youngmi, where can our listeners find you?
YM Mayor, TikTok, Youngmi Mayor. Brian's going to start a TikTok. His TikTok is It's Brian Park. Follow it and make sure that he does it.
And you guys can find me on socials at It's Brian Park, and follow our podcast on socials at Feeling Asian Podcast. Check out our YouTube channel if you want to see the notorious, famous seat switch that happened on this episode. And once again, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian.
Don't dox us.
Please don't dox us.
We're on your side.
And that's it. Bye, guys.
Bye.